Disrespect is not something you beg to stop. It's not something you argue your way out of. It's something you cut off at the root the moment it shows its face. People only disrespect you when they think they can get away with it, when they sense weakness, when they see that you'll tolerate it. And here's the truth: respect isn't asked for, it's commanded. You don't kill disrespect with long explanations or emotional outbursts. You kill it with presence, with composure, with the kind of power that makes someone think twice before crossing the line. The moment you let someone step over your boundaries without consequence, you've given them the blueprint to keep doing it. But when you stand calm, unshaken, calculated, when your silence carries more weight than their noise, that's when you start to kill disrespect at its core. Because the one thing that breaks arrogance faster than anything else is facing someone who cannot be rattled, cannot be manipulated, and refuses to play the game on their terms. Respect is one of those things people confuse all the time. They think it's something you ask for, something you politely request, something you hope people will give you if you're nice enough or patient enough. But here's the reality: respect is not a favor, it's not a handout, it's not up for negotiation. The moment you ask for it, the moment you plead for it, you've already put yourself in a position where you're admitting that you don't have it. Respect is not requested, it's enforced. People operate on signals. They don't listen to what you say nearly as much as they watch what you tolerate. If you let them cross the line once, they'll test it again. If you laugh off the little jabs, if you excuse the subtle digs, if you tell yourself it's not a big deal, what you've really done is open the door and roll out the red carpet for bigger and bolder disrespect. You don't train people how to treat you with speeches or demands. You train them with your standards and with the consequences you attach to them. Think about it. Someone makes a disrespectful comment. You can do two things. You can argue, plead, explain why it hurt you, go on and on trying to make them see your value, or you can enforce the boundary. That doesn't mean yelling. That doesn't mean fighting. It means showing through your actions that this is not acceptable, and you won't participate in it. Maybe that's stepping away, maybe that's ending the conversation, maybe that's cutting off access to you completely. The method will change, but the principle stays the same. You don't negotiate with disrespect. You eliminate it by refusing to engage on its terms. When you operate from this mindset, people feel it. They sense the difference between someone who's desperate to be liked and someone who stands solid in their own self-respect. The desperate person can be manipulated. They can be pushed, tested, toyed with, but the solid person, they can't be shaken because they don't need outside validation to confirm who they are. That's the kind of person others think twice about crossing. That's the kind of presence that enforces respect without a word being spoken. And here's where most people get it wrong. They confuse kindness with weakness. They think that being nice, agreeable, accommodating is the way to earn respect. But what actually happens is the opposite. If you give people endless patience without any boundaries, they don't admire you, they use you. Respect doesn't come from how much you give, it comes from how clearly you define what you won't accept. You can be kind and firm at the same time. You can care for people and still hold the line. True respect is built when others realize your kindness comes from strength, not from fear. Enforcing respect doesn't mean you become cold, harsh, or arrogant. It means you choose yourself first. It means you stop waiting for others to see your worth, and you start living in a way that leaves no room for them to question it. When you walk in that kind of confidence, people adjust. They fall in line. Even the ones who don't like you respect you, and if they, you don't waste your time fighting for their approval. Because the truth is, respect isn't universal, and it doesn't need to be. What matters is that you never lower your standards for those unwilling to rise to them. The shift happens the moment you decide you're done explaining yourself to people who already know what they're doing. Disrespect isn't an accident, it's a choice. And when you let it slide, you teach the other person that their choice has no consequence. But when you enforce your standards, calmly, firmly, consistently, you send a different message. If you can't meet me at this level, you don't get access to me. That's how you kill disrespect before it ever has a chance to grow. Respect isn't about the words you demand, it's about the life you live. It's in your tone, your body language, your boundaries, your follow-through. The strongest people in the room don't shout to be heard. They don't beg to be valued. They carry themselves in such a way that others recognize instinctively. This is not someone you can play games with. And if you want to know how to get there, it's simple. Stop asking for respect and start enforcing it. Not with anger, not with drama, but with an unshakable refusal to accept anything less. That's the kind of energy that changes the way people deal with you. That's the kind of presence that silences disrespect without a word. Because respect isn't something you wait for someone to hand you, it's something you embody so strongly that no one dares to take it away. Disrespect thrives on reaction. It feeds on your anger, your frustration, your need to prove yourself in the moment. The louder you get, the more you show them they've touched a nerve, the more power you hand over. And that's the trap people fall into. They think fighting fire with fire is strength. It's not. Real strength is fire. Real strength is standing there calm and unshaken, while the other person burns themselves out trying to get a rise out of you. Power lies in composure, not reaction. When someone disrespects you, what they're really doing is testing for control. They want to see if they can pull your strings, if they can push you into a reaction that exposes your emotions. The moment you explode, they've succeeded. They own the frame now. You're playing their game on their terms, and you've already lost before the argument even starts. But if you don't give them that reaction, if you hold your ground, stay measured, look them dead in the eye without flinching, everything shifts. Suddenly they're the one exposed because the weapon they tried to use has no effect. Think about it like this. A storm only has power over someone who runs from the rain, but the person who stands still, unbothered, ends up proving the storm wasn't as strong as it thought. Composure is that stillness. It's the ability to stand tall in the middle of chaos and refuse to let the noise decide your actions. And that calmness isn't weakness, it's dominance, because the one who controls themselves always controls the situation. Here's what most people miss: silence is louder than anger. Calmness is more intimidating than shouting. When you meet disrespect with composure, you put the weight back on the other person. They're expecting a reaction, they want it. When they don't get it, they have nothing to feed off. Their words fall flat, their power fizzles out, and the respect they were trying to take gets reinforced instead. It's not about ignoring them, it's about refusing to give them the satisfaction of rattling you. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It doesn't mean you accept bad behavior, it means you respond strategically instead of emotionally. There's a difference between reaction and response. A reaction is immediate, raw, driven by your feelings. A response is deliberate, calculated, grounded in self-control. When you respond instead of react, you keep the power where it belongs, with you. People underestimate the strength it takes to stay calm. Anyone can lash out. Anyone can curse, shout, or throw things when they're disrespected. That's easy. What's rare, what's powerful, is being so centered in who you are that nothing they say can drag you off balance. That's what makes people respect you. Not the volume of your words, but the control you show in the face of provocation. Look at the people in history, or even in your own life, who command the most respect. They aren't the ones constantly blowing up, constantly needing to prove themselves in every argument. They're the ones who walk into a room and shift the energy without saying a word. They're calm, collected, deliberate. They know that control isn't about dominating others, it's about mastering themselves. And when you do that, disrespect has no oxygen left to breathe. Composure is a shield, but it's also a sword. It protects you from getting pulled into unnecessary battles. And at the same time, it cuts down the influence of anyone trying to provoke you. Because the truth is, people can only control you to the degree you let them dictate your emotions. Take that away from them, and they have nothing left. That's why composure is the ultimate flex. Disrespect dies when it meets someone it can't move. The energy fizzles, the insults sound childish, the attempts at control collapse. You don't need to scream to prove your worth. You don't need to defend yourself to show you're strong. Your composure says everything. It tells the world you know exactly who you are, and no one else gets to shake that foundation. That's how you win without even raising your voice. Boundaries are not suggestions. They are not hope. They are not polite requests, whispered under your breath, hoping someone will honor them. Boundaries are lines in the sand, and if you don't treat them like walls, people will treat them like speed bumps. The hard truth is this: once someone crosses a boundary without consequence, they will cross it again, and again, and again, because you've shown them it costs nothing. That's how disrespect grows. It feeds off your silence, off your excuses, off your willingness to bend just to keep the peace. Think about it, you tell someone don't speak to me that way. They do it anyway and you let it slide. What just happened? You didn't set a boundary, you gave a warning without teeth. You made noise but you didn't back it up. And what do people learn? They learn you don't really mean it. They learn your words are just words, and your lines can be erased whenever they want. That's why boundaries have to be enforced like laws, not like suggestions. Otherwise you've built a fence out of paper and anyone can walk straight through. The power of a boundary isn't in announcing, it's in what happens when someone tests it. People test boundaries all the time. It's human nature. Kids test parents, employees test bosses, friends test friends, partners test partners. It's not always malicious, but it's always real. And if the test shows you're unwilling to enforce your line, then in their mind the line never existed. Setting a boundary doesn't have to be loud, it doesn't have to be dramatic, it doesn't even require anger, it just requires consistency. You say what you mean and you follow through every single time. If someone talks to you in a way that crosses the line, you don't argue for hours, you cut the conversation short. If someone continually disrespects your time, you stop making yourself available. If someone repeatedly violates your trust, you stop giving them opportunities to do it again. It's not punishment, it's clarity. You're showing them, not telling them, what your standards are. Here's where people fail. They confuse love with tolerance. They think that keeping someone close means tolerating behavior that eats away at their peace. But love without respect is abuse. Friendship without respect is exploitation. Work without respect is slavery. If you want people to truly value you, you cannot keep lowering the bar just to hold on to them. The stronger your boundaries, the stronger your relationships become, because they're built on mutual respect instead of one-sided sacrifice. And let's get something straight. Boundaries are not walls to keep everyone out. They are doors that decide who gets access, and under what conditions. The key difference is you control that door. You decide who walks in, who stays out, and who loses access when they can't respect the rule. Without that control, people walk in and out of your life like it's a revolving door, dragging chaos with them every time. Boundaries lock that down. When you enforce your boundaries like walls, something powerful happens. You stop wasting energy on endless arguments and explanation. You stop feeling drained by people who take more than they give. You stop doubting your worth because of how others treat you. Why? Because the way others treat you is no longer up for debate. You've already decided what you will and won't allow. That certainty changes everything. It shifts your confidence. It shifts your presence. It shifts the way people see you. The strongest people you know are not the ones who let everything slide. They're the ones who stand firm without apology. They don't scream to get their point across. They simply hold their line. And people respect them for it, even the ones who don't like them. Because deep down everyone understands the value of someone who won't compromise their self-respect. Disrespect thrives where boundaries are weak. But the moment your boundaries become non-negotiable, disrespect has no room to breathe. You don't have to explain yourself 100 times. You don't have to prove why you deserve respect. Your life becomes the proof. Your actions speak louder than your warning. And every time you enforce a boundary, you reinforce your worth. So the choice is simple. Either your boundaries are walls, or they're suggestions. One will protect you, the other will destroy your peace. And the moment you decide you're done living with suggestions, that's the moment you stop training people to disrespect you. That's the moment you start commanding respect without even asking for it. Control is always up for grabs in every interaction. The person who sets the tone, who frames the situation, is the one who holds the power. That's why arguments spiral out of control, because one person drags the other into their frame, and suddenly the whole game is being played by their rule. When someone disrespects you, what they're really doing is trying to shift the frame. They want you defensive, emotional, chasing their approval. And the second you step into that role, you've lost. The secret is simple. Control the frame, control the game. People who thrive on disrespect know exactly what they're doing. They poke, they prod, they push your buttons. They want you to explode, to react, to lose composure. Why? Because the moment you do, the frame belongs to them. Now you're fighting their fight on their terms, with their weapon. That's how they win, not by being right, but by making you lose your ground. But when you refuse to step into their frame, when you stay steady and force them into yours, everything flips. They can't win a game you're not playing. Here's the difference. Their frame is chaos. Yours is calm. Their frame is disrespect. Yours is self-respect. Their frame is noise. Yours is silence that carries weight. The stronger frame always dominates. So the question is never how do I make them stop? The question is which frame am I standing in? Because once you choose yours and hold it, the other person has no choice but to adjust, or walk away. Either way you win. Think about how arguments usually start. Someone makes a disrespectful comment. You react. You defend yourself. You explain. You raise your voice. And in that moment you're dancing to their music. You didn't control the frame. They did. But picture this instead. Someone throws a jab, and you don't bite. You stay calm. You stay composed. You keep your tone level. Suddenly the disrespect doesn't land. The frame holds steady around you, and they're the ones scrambling. Because their attempt at control just fell flat. That's the difference presence makes. The frame you carry is like an invisible atmosphere. People step into it the moment they interact with you. If your frame is shaky, insecure, desperate to be validated, they'll control it. If your frame is solid, unbothered, rooted in self-respect, they have no leverage. They can shout, they can insult, they can try every trick in the book, but it all bounces off. Because you've already decided what reality you're living in. And here's the catch. The more calm you stay, the more their lack of control shows. They end up looking weak, not you. This is why composure is never passive. It's active control. It's not about ignoring disrespect.
It's about making sure you never let the other person set the terms of the conversation. You decide the pace. You decide the tone. You decide when it ends. That's real power. Not needing to win the argument, but controlling whether or not the argument even happens. Look at leaders, negotiators, people who naturally command respect. They never let others dictate the frame. They don't rush. They don't scramble. They don't defend themselves against every little jab. They set the tone and force others to match it. And the reason they can do that is because they've mastered themselves first. Control the frame and you control the outcome, not because you manipulate others, but because you refuse to be manipulated. When you own the frame, disrespect dies on arrival. It has nowhere to go, no fuel to burn, because the energy it needs, your reaction isn't there. The person trying to provoke you gets frustrated, because their tactics don't work. And the more they push, the more foolish they look, because you've shown that the power never left your hands. That's how you win, not by shouting louder but by standing taller. Every interaction you have is either you stepping into someone else's frame, or them stepping into yours. There's no middle ground. So decide, do you want to be the person constantly pulled into chaos, constantly on the defensive, constantly reacting, or do you want to be the person who sets the tone, who defines the rules, who holds their ground so firmly that others can't help but respect it? The choice is always yours. Strength has never been about muscles, volume, or intimidation. Strength is about presence. It's about the energy you bring into the room before you even say a word. Disrespect doesn't back down because you yell louder or threaten harder. Disrespect dies when it runs into someone who carries themselves with such undeniable self-respect that there's no crack to slip through, no weakness to exploit. Real strength is not about physical dominance. It's about the unshakable way you project confidence, certainty, and control. People who disrespect others are looking for targets. They're looking for insecurity, for hesitation, for signs that you'll tolerate their behavior. They prey on weakness, and they test constantly to see how far they can go. But when they meet someone who is solid, someone who doesn't flinch, doesn't beg, doesn't explain endlessly, they realize they've chosen the wrong opponent. Because disrespect only thrives where it finds permission, and real strength never gives it permission. Think of the times in your life when you've met people who seemed untouchable. They weren't the loudest. They weren't the ones flexing or showing off. They were calm, steady, direct. Their very presence carried weight, and people naturally treated them differently. That's the strength we're talking about, not the kind that forces respect, but the kind that commands it, not because you demand it, but because everything about you makes it clear you won't live without it. And here's the truth. Strength doesn't mean you're cold, arrogant, or unreachable. It means you respect yourself so much that you won't allow disrespect to exist in your space. It means you know your worth so deeply that someone's attempt to tear you down doesn't even touch you. That kind of confidence is magnetic. People notice. Even the ones who don't like you will think twice before crossing you, because they sense that you can't be shaken. The mistake most people make is thinking they have to prove their strength. They think they need to shout, argue, or put someone in their place every time they're tested. But real strength is proven in silence, in restraint, in the ability to stand tall without losing your cool. Anyone can explode, anyone can fight, but very few can stay calm, steady, and firm when someone tries to disrespect them. That's what separates the weak from the strong. Strength also shows up in the way you carry yourself daily, in your body language, in your tone, in your choices. When you walk like you know who you are, people notice. When you speak with clarity instead of desperation, people listen. When you make decisions based on your values, instead of other people's approval, people respect you, even if they don't agree with you. That's how strength operates, not as a performance, but as a lifestyle. And make no mistake, this kind of strength isn't built overnight. It's forged in the choices you make every single day. Every time you enforce a boundary, you build it. Every time you stay calm instead of reacting, you build it. Every time you choose self-respect over people-pleasing, you build it. Piece by piece, action by action, until it becomes who you are. And once it's who you are, disrespect doesn't stand a chance around you, because the energy you carry won't allow it. The presence of true strength shifts the room. It silences the noise. It forces people to pause, to measure their words, to think twice before trying to test you. That's not fear, it's respect. And it's not something you can fake. It comes from within, from knowing that you will never shrink yourself for anyone, and you will never compromise your dignity to keep peace. Disrespect dies in the face of strength, because strength exposes it. When you're calm, confident, and solid, the other person's words sound smaller. Their insults look desperate. Their attempts to provoke you fall flat. They end up revealing more about themselves than they ever reveal about you. That's the ultimate power, not needing to fight to prove you're strong, but being so strong that the fight isn't even necessary. So don't chase respect, don't beg for it, don't waste your energy trying to convince people who already know what they're doing. Instead, build the kind of strength that speaks for you. Strength that radiates in how you walk, talk, and live. Strength that makes disrespect uncomfortable in your presence. Because when you project self-respect, strategic confidence, and zero tolerance for nonsense, disrespect has no room left to breathe. And that's when it dies, not with noise, not with conflict, but with the undeniable force of your presence. Disrespect only lives where it's allowed. The moment you stop tolerating it, feeding it, or chasing it down with explanations, it loses its grip. Respect is not begged for, it's enforced by the way you carry yourself. It's protected by your composure, it's reinforced by your boundaries, it's amplified when you control the frame, and it's cemented in the strength of your presence. Every single one of these pieces fits together. The less you react, the more you control. The stronger your boundaries, the less anyone can push. The steadier your frame, the quicker others adjust. And the more you live in your own strength, the faster disrespect disappears. This isn't about being aggressive. It's not about playing games or proving yourself at every turn. It's about building a standard for your life that says, this is who I am, and this is what I allow. When people see that, when they feel that, they have no choice but to treat you accordingly, or lose access to you altogether. And that's the real power, not in forcing people to respect you, but in creating a life where disrespect cannot survive. The truth is simple, you can't control how others act, but you can always control how you respond, how you carry yourself, and how you set the terms for your own peace. That's the battlefield where disrespect is killed, not with anger, not with drama, but with a standard so unshakable that nothing beneath it is ever entertained. You don't wait for respect, you live in a way that commands it, and when you do, disrespect dies the moment it tries to enter the room.